Hi, this is author Taryn P. Lupo, and welcome back to Pirates of Savannah. This is the free audio version, and remember, if you would like to buy the book or support me through buying the commercial-free version, you can find all that at lupoliink.com. www.lupoliink.com. Enjoy.
Chapter 16 The Crimson Dogwood and Exodus. Patrick ran into the night seeking Isaac's aid. Archibald approached the house cautiously and addressed the sentries at his door.
"What's the meaning of this? Why are you at my home at this hour?"
He questioned angrily. "Blacksmith, stay there," a soldier demanded. Archibald complied as his soul filled with a mix of rage and concern. After a long, anxious wait, the guard returned escorted by another soldier. Archibald felt a ball of black terror roll up his spine when he realized Commander Byron Kingsley was standing in his doorway. "Mr. Freeman, by order of the king, your house is now being used to quarter His Majesty's army. We now offer you protection from the Spanish if they choose to retaliate. Your family has been sequestered upstairs while they serve our troops' needs," he coldly explained. Archibald pushed past the arrogant commander and yelled up to the loft,
"Marion, are you up there?"
"We are, but Sergeant Luther's holding us, and we have not been allowed to leave for a—" Marion was interrupted. Sergeant Luther hissed a threat to Marion. "That be enough accusing tongue, lass." "Sergeant Luther, send her down. Let him see his wife is in good health and that his family is happy to be serving king and country," Commander Kingsley ordered. After some rumbling and footsteps, Marion climbed down the ladder from the loft. She was crying. "Husband, I'm so sorry. They've been here since yesterday, just taking whatever they want. We have been cooking and cleaning by their command. We're just so frightened. I'm so happy you're finally home. Tell me you can fix all this."
"Are you and the children unmolested and healthy?" Archibald voiced his concern.
"Our younglings with Prudence and Mariana are still crammed up there like livestock under guard since the soldiers stormed the house yesterday. They just barged in. They rounded us up and forced us upstairs. We dared not stop them. The troops searched our home and took whatever they wanted. Just look at it. It's in such disarray," Marion explained through the tears as her husband hugged her. Archibald turned to Byron and commanded,
"You need to leave this house now. I'll be talking to Oglethorpe tomorrow and we'll work all this out. Now it is time you take your men and get out."
"I'm sorry, but this is the king's home now, and you need to find a new place to live. But you may not vacate until we discuss something curious my soldiers found upstairs in your loft," the commander replied with a grin. "Soldiers, take him out back to the tree while I retrieve the contraband." The two sentries pulled Marion and Archibald apart and seized the blacksmith.
"Release me,"
Archibald demanded as he knocked their arms out of the way. One guard struck Archibald on the side of his face, knocking the blacksmith down to the floor. "Stop!" Marion screamed through her tears as she witnessed the assault of her beloved. Archibald held his face and feigned injury. The sentry moved over him to strike him again, when the blacksmith snapped quickly to his feet. He caught the guard by surprise, and the thick top of the skull of Mr. Freeman's head shattered the soldier's nose. Blood sprayed on the floor as the soldier fell to his knees, shrieking in pain. Archibald took advantage of the surprise attack and grabbed the other guard by the neck and moved his leg behind the soldier's calf. In one fluid motion, he pushed the soldier at his neck, tripping him over his leg and viciously throat-slamming him to the floor.
"That's enough,"
the commander shouted. The combatant turned his attention to Byron Kingsley's belting voice. The redcoat now had Marion in his claws and was pressing a large knife to her throat. The husband slowly released his chokehold on the gasping man and cautiously rose to his feet. He raised his hands up and carefully backed up. "Get up. You two are an embarrassment to my command. Tie Mr. Freeman to the tree outside. You'll find him more cooperative now, I'm sure, the commander ordered. The soldiers were in pain and moved slowly, getting up, brushing off their uniforms. They then forcefully manhandled their attacker. They shoved Archibald out the door and dragged him to the large dogwood, which was now turning a red color for fall. The redcoats wrestled his arms back and pulled them around the tree. They tightly bound his wrist with a strong hemp rope. Archibald tried to wrangle free, but with no avail. His thoughts wandered to his captive family in the house and how he felt utterly helpless to stop what was happening. The commander walked out like a predator stalking his prey. Byron approached the prisoner carrying a leather bag. Marion ran outside and tugged on the commander's arm, trying to beg him to stop. "Let him go. We can work all this out with your superiors. We can even pay you. Just wait." Byron lost his patience and struck her in the mouth with a large leather bag, knocking Marion to the ground. She screamed in pain as he struck her repeatedly with the sack until she lay prone on the ground unconscious. Archibald screamed at this abuse, and tears welled up in his eyes as he watched for a sign of movement from his love to give him hope that she was still alive. Kingsley then reached into the buckskin bag and pulled out the large worn-out tomes that were hidden in the loft. "When my men searched your loft, they found these books clumsily hidden. I am sure you're very aware that these books are forbidden by law. What shall I do with you, Freeman?" Kingsley grinned evilly. Archibald's eyes made their way to Kingsley, and now instead of sorrow and fear, they showed pure anger. "How dare you strike my bride? I would kill you where you stand if you were not such a coward to have me bound. Untie me," Archibald demanded. "Your annoying wife is fine. I'm sure you do the same when she won't silence herself," Kingsley replied. "You will take me to your commander and answer for what you've done here. I'm entitled to a trial in Oglethorpe's judgment on this accusation." Archibald angrily spit out. "I am able to dispense justice without his input, and I have already made my judgment. You are guilty of assaulting His Majesty's guard and reading banned writings." Byron drew his blade and threw the books at the condemned man's feet. "If you use that knife to dispense arbitrary justice for your king, it's only a matter of time until another king's man takes its handle and turns it on you," the convicted man warned. "Then I shall be sure to hold the knife tighter than anyone else." Kingsley smiled as he carved the cold steel blade into Archibald's throat. A line of crimson turned into a gush of blood as the blacksmith gargled and thrashed. Blood poured down his clothes, pooling and spilling all over the contraband books at his feet. Byron wiped the blood off his large hunting blade with Archibald's limp body. He turned to face Marion as he smiled. As he pointed his knife at her belly and maneuvered into a killing position, a musket shot rang out in the darkness. Byron jumped for cover as he ordered his soldiers into the darkness toward the direction of the muzzle flash. His guards quickly moved and charged into the darkness. Another loud cracking sound filled the air as the commander felt a shot whiz past his ear. Concluding it was time to retreat, Byron slithered unseen into the darkness. Sergeant Luther smiled. "It appears the commander has left us all alone, sweet ladies. You there, what's your name? I kind of fancy you, lass," Luther asked, pointing at Mariana. Prudence and Heather closed ranks in front of Mariana and stood steadfast. The twins joined the human wall of defense. The redcoat pulled out his long hunting knife and aimed it for the twins. "Stand aside, or I'll gut each of you until I get what I want," the dangerous man threatened. "Stand down," Mariana conceded as she pushed her way forward. "I'll just give him what he needs." "Smart, lass. The rest of you over there, you can watch if you like, but move upon me and I'll skin her like a doe," he threatened while waving his knife. "Go on," Mariana instructed. "Do as he says." The reluctant group moved into a tight corner and started weeping. Cover your eyes and turn away, boys, Heather demanded of the twins. Mariana started untying her jacket, and it slipped off. Luther slipped the blade under her stay, and in one swift motion sliced the lacing up the front. It immediately fell to the floor. Her breast was easy to make out in the thin shift, and the forceful man grew erect as her large nipples pressed out against the translucent linen. Luther wasted no time. He ran his blade through the thin cloth, cutting away and ripping the shift. Her hefty flesh poured out of the tear, and the red coat fixated on her large pink nipples. He put his lips on them, and Mariana moaned. He gripped hard and crushed her breast, causing her a great deal of pain, but she continued to feign pleasure as she ran her hand up her petticoat to her thigh. The sergeant dropped his pantaloons, exposing his erect cock.
Just relax, lass. I won't stick you too rough,
he promised with a devilish smile. Lust overpowered caution, and Luther lowered his blade to lift Mariana's petticoats. She moaned loudly with excitement, knowing this was her only chance to seize the opportunity. He pulled her petticoats over her waist and exposed her naked pelvis and gasped. At that instant, Mariana buried her dirk deep into the redcoat's chest. Luther howled in pain like a pig being slaughtered as Mariana pulled the knife out and plunged it in, again and again, into the rapist's chest. The sergeant cringed in pain. He held up his arms to defend himself from being stabbed, but Mariana simply stabbed at his hands. The sergeant dropped his knife and yelped as he rolled into a ball. Heather dropped her dirk into his back, while Prudence followed suit and pierced his side. The twins continued the assault and plunged their blades into his lower back as the bloodied, gasping heap finally collapsed motionless. Luther was stabbed so viciously, the children lost count how many times their knives fell, and the carcass was no longer recognizable as human. With ragged breaths, the family finally became exhausted and stopped stabbing the lump of dull red meat on the floor. They panted in exhaustion as their horrified eyes took in the massive pool of blood on the wooden planks below their feet. They stared quietly at each other in shock at the gruesome display of self-defense they had just committed. Such a brutal group stabbing had not been seen since the Ides of March in the Roman Senate. "Wake up! No time for this. We have to help Father," Amos finally shouted. The group scurried down the ladder and did not look back. Blood was raining down the ceiling as it escaped through the floorboards above. Prudence slipped in a pool of liquid crimson that had already formed on the main floor as they ran to the backyard. The family approached the tree to get a better sense of the situation. Heather screamed and cried with grief. The group stood in terror as they took in the brutal scene. Archibald's limp corpse crumpled up under the dogwood. His arms were tied behind the tree, creating the illusion that he was alive but just squatting. Everyone reacted differently to the severity of the horrible sight. Some dropped to their knees and wept, while others screamed in anger. Out of the blackness, Isaac and Patrick joined the gruesome scene. Patrick shook in anger while Isaac stared slackjaw in disbelief. "Marion!" Patrick yelled, and he ran over to her unconscious body. She groaned and moved her arm as a sign of life. Patrick set aside the horror and focused on keeping everyone alive. He took charge of the situation. "She's alive. Heather, help your mother get to her feet. Twins, take Prudence and Mariana to their families and tell them all to flee immediately. Quickly explain what happened and ask Prudence's father for his horse and cart. Tell the family to take everything of value with them and quickly meet us at the lightning split tree in Thunderbolt. Also tell them to take their families making haste and be weary. We'll all be killed if we don't move immediately." The shocked twins showed incredible maturity and somehow snapped out of their grieving to handle the task at hand. They followed Patrick's orders and dragged the weeping ladies away from their homes. Patrick continued commanding. "Isaac, cut down Archibald and carry him as far as you can. Head for the lightning split tree, where we dueled. Move fast and quietly. Isaac complied with a full face of tears and threw the bloody corpse over his massive shoulders. The hulking man wasted no time with the grim task and ran into the darkness. Marion was now sitting up, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. "See to your mother, Heather, all right?" Patrick asked softly. Patrick ran into the shed and threw the scrap metal out the door. He uncovered Archibald's hidden hatch in the ground and flung it open. He grabbed the old dueling pistols and stuffed them into his thick leather belt. At the bottom of the dark hole was a large wool cloth. Archibald hastily picked it up and heard something drop out and jingle. He searched the dark hole and pulled out the small, heavy bag. The gold! Oh, thank God, I can't believe I found it, Patrick thought. He grabbed the wool cloth and wrapped it around the bag of gold. Patrick then stuffed it all into his shirt and headed back to the matriarch. Patrick heard yelling in the darkness and assumed the troops were mobilizing. "We're dead if we stay here any longer, Heather," he said, helping Marion to her feet. He steadied her, being careful that she did not stumble. Something caught his eye under the dogwood tree. He quickly snatched up the blood-spattered books and stuffed them back into the leather bag which Byron had cast onto the ground. Patrick and Heather put their arms around Marion and helped her half-conscious, wobbling body away from the home. Traumatized, the three disappeared into the blackness as Patrick heard sounds of motion at the front of the Freeman house. They quickly stumbled into the pitch black. Isaac's back was in terrible pain when he finally sat Archibald's body under the dueling trees. The starlight was barely bright enough to illuminate his exodus. He had twisted his ankle in the darkness, but the shock of battle kept him from feeling the pain until just then. He carefully loaded his musket with shot and stared into the blackness, keeping vigil. In a matter of minutes, Patrick, Heather, and Marion came panting into the clearing. Isaac lowered his musket and ran over to help them. He put his arm around the stumbling Marion and positioned himself so she would not see Archibald's bloodied carcass, but it was too late. She saw her husband's lifeless silhouette in the starlight. She was finally conscious enough to grasp the magnitude of what had happened. She pushed Isaac and threw herself onto her husband's dead body. She rocked Archibald's limp corpse in her arms and wept loudly enough for all the world to hear. Heather ran to her mother and held her while she clutched her deceased husband. The two men held the grief-stricken women while they clung to the crimson-stained body. The four continued to cry, and Marion demanded to know what happened. Patrick told her he had seen Byron Kingsley hovering with a blade over her, and that is all he saw. They were too far away to hit him with shot, but hoped the noise would rouse his attention. They assumed the Redcoat commander was the one who spilled Archibald's soul from his body. The musket shot saved Marion, but the guards chased after Patrick and Isaac. They were unaware that Archibald had fallen and concerned themselves with leading the soldiers away from her unconscious body. Patrick and Isaac were pursued into the snake-ridden swamps. After a high-speed chase through the night, they lost the soldiers in the pitch blackness. This bought the men precious time to double back to the house. "Heather, why are you splattered in blood?" Patrick asked. Before Heather could tell her tale, she was interrupted by the sounds of a creaking wooden wagon rolling in. Startled by the eerie noise, Patrick and Isaac pointed their firelocks toward the ruckus. The two twins stepped into the starlight, followed by a procession of refugees. Prudence and Mariana ran over and joined the weeping women, holding the corpse. Heather let go of the dead body and silently held her two friends' hands. Mariana and Prudence's confused families were with them, carrying all their valuables. The baker and the tailor surveyed the scene. Prudence's father stated in a near breathless whisper, "Dear God, daughter, you speak the truth. The Redcoats really did kill him." Patrick replied, "It is true, all right. We cannot stay here. You and your daughters are in mortal danger. They are being held and thusly associated with my family. They'll be associated with Archibald's crime as well." Mariana's father spoke up nervously. "Daughter, you have done no crime. We should go back and explain your situation to Oglethorpe. Our family does not need to be involved in this. Papa, I have not told you everything. We cannot go back. I have indeed committed a terrible crime, Mariana confessed tearfully. What are you speaking of, young one? He said with grave concern. I am covered with the sergeant's blood. He forced himself on me, and I defended myself before he stole my virtue. I ran him through and spilled his life in the freeman's loft, Mariana solemnly confessed. You must be confused, little one. Even if you stabbed him, he's still probably alive. Let's go back and throw ourselves at Oglethorpe's mercy. The baker bartered. Amos's crimson-covered body stepped forward and interrupted. No, sir. Sergeant Luther is absolutely dead. Patrick looked around at the group of children and realized they were all covered in clumped chunks of red flesh. Oh, God, it is true. All of you are baptized in blood. It's not safe for any of us now. They probably already discovered the sergeant's body and raised the alarm. We have to get to Williams and Darien now. We'll have to figure out our next move there. Patrick took charge and ordered the large Jewish man to load the body into the cart. He then commanded the brave group to push into the blackness as fast as they could. The sounds of moaning and sobbing filled the night while the train of refugees marched towards Darien.